A very odd thing happened in a debate the British Parliament had about calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Poll after poll shows that a clear majority of Britons have had enough of this war. 66% are calling for a ceasefire without precondition. And that's what the motion put forward by the Scottish National Labour Party clearly called for. Such a motion would have deeply embarrassed the leadership of the Labour Party, who for the last 5 months have been avoiding saying just that. Labour put forward another motion, which gave a veto to Israel on a ceasefire by calling for Hamas to release its hostage first. So what happened? Lindsay Hoyle, the parliamentary speaker, broke with advice and convention and called separate votes on separate motions, scuppering the SNP one. That's when the odd thing happened. Admitting what he had done, the speaker excused himself by saying he was very, very concerned about the physical safety of some members of parliament. In a flash, a vote about Gaza became a vote about intimidation of MPs. But by whom? That too became all too clear. Right-wing Tory MP Lee Anderson told GB News that Islamists had got control of the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. He refused to apologise for this Islamophobic smear and lost the whip. But other Tories who said the same thing faced no sanction. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman wrote in the Daily Telegraph, "The truth is that Islamists, extremists and anti-Semites are in charge now." So that was it. Honest MPs were being intimidated for voting against the ceasefire in Gaza by a radical Islamist that had secretly got into London. One of these very dangerous people was identified by the Times as Ben Jamal, the director of the Palestine Solidarity campaign, who had led demonstrations outside Parliament. But there's one small problem with this. Jamal is a Christian. In fact, he's the son of a vicar. What had got him on the radar was the chant, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." And that's when we come to the second small problem in all of this. The very same idea, if not the words, had been carved into Likud's party policy since 1977. Between the sea and Jordan, there will only be Israeli sovereignty, it says. That's even more explicit than the Palestinian chant, which does not refer to sovereignty. So the claim we're being asked to swallow whole is it's not genocidal when Israeli Jewish leaders use the phrase, but it is genocidal when Palestinians use it, be they Muslim or Christian. But whatever happened in Parliament worked. People who should have been held to account for backing a war that's killed 30,000 civilians have turned themselves into the victims of anti-Semitism. 3 of them now go around with bodyguards. This is only the start of an election year when these tactics will be used more and more to cancel what can only be described as legitimate opposition. That opposition is only coming from the streets because Parliament is becoming less and less representative. The government and the opposition are at one on Gaza. Both stand foursquare behind the principle of Israel's right to defend itself, even as Israel is being taken to the highest international court for genocide. Record weekly demonstrations for Palestine are now being described by some as mobs. No Labour elected officials at any level are allowed to take part. Labour provides no opposition to a government that counters and flouts the clearly expressed will of the International Court of Justice that has ordered Israel to comply with the Genocide Convention. Last week, the UK argued at the ICJ that legal proceedings should be put to one side to allow political negotiations on the Palestinian state to proceed. As if on cue, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu torpedoed that argument by claiming that Israel's security needs would be incompatible with a Palestinian state. "I will not compromise on full Israeli security control of all the territory west of Jordan, and this is contrary to a Palestinian state," Netanyahu said in a post on X. Once again, Britain has lined itself up behind a process that cannot lead anywhere under this leadership or any other. No politician exists in Israel that can order nearly 1 million settlers to leave their homes. The proponents of this cynical hoax have only ever had one state in mind, Israel. So I'm asking myself, who are the real Democrats? The MPs inside Parliament or the demonstrations outside? Who represents the British people on this? And who is subverting British democracy? The British Palestinians whose families are being butchered in Gaza, or the unholy alliance of neoconservatives and racists seeking to skew and criminalise all debate on Israel until none exists in this country at all? And which of the two camps supports the rule of international law? Peace will not be restored in this conflict by giving Israel free rein, but a peace of sorts could be imposed on the streets of London if support for Palestine becomes criminalised in Britain. It will be a peace created by silence. Is that what Britain has become?